Good morning, friends. I am Captain Dr. D.K. Ramawat, working as a non-invasive cardiologist at Ramawat Heart and General Medicine Hospital, Badmer, since 20 years. Today, we are going to take a topic which is little bit difficult, but I have made simplified for you people. The topic is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Of course, cardiologists and physicians have got less interest in HCM rather than CAD. But you will enjoy this topic, and we have taken the topic in 3 parts. And today we are going to discuss the part 1 of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So we are taking the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So if we start with the introduction, HCM is a heterogeneous, being diverse in character, yet complex genetic disease, and is an important cause of arrhythmic sudden death, heart failure, and atrial fibrillation with embolic stroke. A global disease with cases reported in more than 50 countries across continents, ethnic and racial origins, and in both sexes. Interestingly, the causal mutations, clinical course, and phenotype expression. Phenotype expression means physical and psychological characteristics of an organism from both genetics and environment. All these 3 are similar in all accepted populations. With only approximately 4,000 cardiologists for a populous country like India, the ratio of cardiologists to cardiac patients is poor. The other challenge faced by cardiologists is to keep abreast with advances in diagnosis and management for a heterogeneous disease such as hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, so distinctly different from CAD. I again repeat, other challenge faced by cardiologists is to keep abreast with advances in diagnosis and management for a heterogeneous disease such as hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, so distinctly different from CAD. Now the prevalence of the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy disease. So the prevalence of the condition is 1 in 500, means 0.2%. Many individuals remain undiagnosed in the general population. The data from throughout the world, a 1:500 people would mean that up to 2 million people in India or China affected by the disease. Very important to note, this condition affecting the myocardium often remains undetected until the first symptom of sudden cardiac death. Many individuals with HCM are minimally affected and have normal lifespan. Some patients with HCM have significant disease complications resulting in disease progression and premature death. Now the many names of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In 1907, a German pathologist, Schwenke, described the pathology of HCM. What he described? Diffuse muscular hypertrophy of the left ventricular outflow tract, which causes an obstruction. The left ventricle has to work harder to overcome the obstruction, hence the primary hypertrophy will be accompanied by secondary hypertrophy, causing an incremental further narrowing of the outflow tract. The modern description of HCM was first elucidated by Tilly in 1958, who described asymmetric hypertrophy in young adults, and also known as hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy and idiopathic hypertrophic subaortic stenosis have been the common terminologies used to describe the condition. The current terminology is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now I am going to etiology of HCM. This is caused by abnormal genes in the heart muscles. These genes cause the walls of the heart chamber, especially left ventricle, to contract harder and become thicker than normal. The thickened walls become stiff. Now I will take you to the classification and the etiology of HCM. We divide HCM into two groups. Number one, true HCM due to mutations to sarcomere protein gene, and another is phenocopies. So in true HCM, which is mutations in sarcomere protein gene, is genetical and it is 100% pure. It contains 5 diseases. Number 1, beta myosin heavy chain 7, myosin binding protein C, troponin I and T, and the topomyosin alpha 1 chain, then myosin light chain 3. These are the pure genetic and 100% pure. Let us go for the another group known as the HCM phenocopies due to mutation of non-sarcomeric patient gene. This is non-sarcomeric patient protein genes. Non-sarcomeric protein genes. Here pathogenesis and histological phenotypes, means physical and psychological characteristics, is different than true HCM. Only 5 to 10% cases of HCM are prevalent with such clinical diagnosis of HCM. So we divide this group into 3 subgroups. For example, first group is storage diseases. These are also phenocopies. What do you mean by phenocopies? Phenocopies, an individual showing features characteristic of a genotype. What is genotype? Having wild type and unmodified gene other than its own but produced environmentally rather than genetically. So phenocopy, an individual showing features characteristic of a genotype other than its own but produced environmentally rather than genetically. Now I will take you to the few diseases which are phenocopies, so that we can understand in better way what is a phenocopy. So in phenocopies we will take the storage diseases. First, the Pompe's disease, the storage disease, an inherited disorder caused by buildup of a complex sugar called glycogen in the body cells. The accumulation in certain organs and tissues, especially muscles, impair their ability to function normally. Now the signs and symptoms of Pompe's disease: weak muscles, poor muscle tone, enlarged liver, failure to gain weight and failure to grow at the expected rate, and that is failure to thrive, trouble in breathing, feeding problems, infections in the respiratory tract, and problems with hearing. And the treatment lies in myozyme and zyme replacement therapy. Then the second phenocopy we are taking, Danon disease. This is also known as God is my judge. And this disease is caused by mutations in the LMP2 gene. So it is called lysozyme associated membrane protein gene cardiomyopathy, also called Danon disease. Is a profound disease process characterized by rapid clinical deterioration leading to a life-threatening arrhythmia and cardiac death in young patients less than 25 years. It requires time molecular diagnosis, and treatment consists of heart transplantation. Then the third, we are taking the Fabry's disease, also storage disease. It is a rare genetic disease with a deficiency of an enzyme called alpha-galactosidase A. The disease affects many parts of the body, including skin, eyes, gastrointestinal system, kidney, heart, brain, and nervous system. So we are going now, symptoms of the Fabry's disease. They include episodes of pain and burning sensations, then angiokeratomas, hypohidrosis, corner of a city, hearing loss, and treatment consists of enzyme replacement, alpha galactosidase A. Then the fourth, the last but not the least, phenocopy which we are describing is Noonan syndrome. It is a disorder that involves unusual facial characteristics, short stature, heart defect present at birth, bleeding problems, developmental delays, malformations of the bones of rib cage. Noonan syndrome is caused by change in one of the several autosomal dominant genes. Treatment consists of, there is no cure for this disease. Manage symptoms and complications. Children may need treatment for heart problems. Now I will take you to on this table. This table consists of the phenocopies, and I will show you the important phenocopies which you have to remember. Number one, the deficiency of alpha galactosidase A, which causes Fabry disease. Then the mutation in lysozyme associated membrane protein 2 called Danon disease. Then mitochondrial gene mutations which produces diabetes mellitus, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. Then I will go to mutations in frataxin gene causes Friedreich's ataxia. Then myotonin protein kinase mutation causing myotonic dystrophy. These are all important which we have to remember every time. Now I will take you to the pathology. The pathology overview and clinical course. Very important, very important. The hypertrophic cardiomyopathy manifests as left ventricular hypertrophy. This may be diffusely distributed or localized to a single myocardial segment. Diffusely distributed or localized to a single myocardial segment. Here you are seeing the transthoracic examination of a patient presenting exertional syncope. Syncope, not dyspnea, reveals hypertrophic cardiomyopathy with disproportionate hypertrophy of interventricular septum. You can see IV is measuring 24 millimeter. The normal IVS is what? How much? It is only 6 to 11 millimeter. And normal posterior wall is how much? 6 to 10 millimeter. This is posterior wall, this is septum, this is aorta, this is left atrium, this is left ventricle, and this is the LVOT, where the blood flows inside the aorta. So this is the thickening in transthoracic echo of the septum. It is not up to 11, but it is 24 mm. So this is HCM. Now I am going to the second pathology, which is very much important. You must see the three major points, the major pathological signs in HCM. Number one is ASH, asymmetric septal hypertrophy. Without obstruction, you can see asymmetric septal hypertrophy. Without obstruction, blood can flow in the aorta. Here it is the aorta. This is mitral wall, left ventricle, right atrium, and left atria. So blood can flow very easily by this type of the asymmetric septal hypertrophy. There is no obstruction. Now I am going to take you to other main pathology of the HCM. First you have seen the asymmetric septal hypertrophy of the septum. Now you are seeing systolic anterior motion of mitral wall. Systolic anterior motion of the mitral wall leaflet in apical 4-chamber view of echo, obstructing blood flow in aortic wall and the aorta. You see, this is the LA and this is LV. Blood is coming from LA to LV and it can't enter the aortic wall because this mitral wall leaf, that is anterior one, it has come to anteriorly to the aorta and obstructing the blood flow. Then the third measure, pathology in this HCM is mid-systolic closure, MSC. There it was SM SAM, earlier it was the ASH AS, then AS, then SAM, then MSC. MSC mid-systolic closure of aortic wall in M mode echo. This is M mode. It is not just transthoracic echo, transthoracic, but it is M mode. It is not Doppler. So here, or it is not two. It is M mode in 2D echo. So here you will see the decreased forward cardiac output. You see, this is left atrium, this is aorta, these are the aortic walls. When aortic wall closes, you see like this in M mode. So here this figure is at the time of mid-systole. Heart started contracting, first initially, then middle, then last. In mid-systole it has closed. So what will happen? Blood will not, total blood of LV will not enter in the aorta. So this is also known as mid-systolic closure of the aortic wall in M mode echo, which decreases forward cardiac output. The three major pathology I have shown you. Now I will take you to the clinically hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is characterized by what? Number one, left ventricular hypertrophy associated with non-dilated ventricular chambers. Remember, here LV hypertrophy is there, but chambers are non-dilated, number one. Number two, SCM in the absence of another cardiac or systemic disease. There is no other cardiac disease. Number third, SCM recognized by maximal LV thickness more than 15 mm. You know that what is normal thickness of LV wall? It is 6 mm to 10 mm, but here it is equal to or more than 15 mm. And also it is more than, thickness is more than 2 standard deviations above the mean. What is 2 standard deviation? I will tell you in the next slide. Then also Z score more than 2. Now what is Z score? I will tell you in the next slide. So either LV wall thickness more than 15 mm or more than 2 standard deviation above the mean, or more than, or Z score more than 2 for age, sex or body size by 2D echography or by MRI. Now the fourth, last but not the least, some SCM families members with disease causing sarcomere protein gene mutations may have normal LV thickness and needs further follow-up. Now you see this figure. Here it is para-external long axis and short axis view of SCM patient with distribution of hypertrophy, especially in the septum, with maximum wall thickness of 30 mm. Here wall thickness is 30 mm. This is the septum, this is LV, this is posterior wall, this is aorta, this is left atrium. Here short axis, this is long axis view, this is short axis view, this is anterior septum, this is posterior wall, this is lateral wall, this is posterior septum. All are thickened. Now I will take you to the figure which shows para-external long axis view and apical 5-chamber view in 2D echo. Here you will see number one SCM, and simultaneously you can also judge VSB, ventricular septal bulge. What is ventricular septal bulge? It is very important, because if you don't know this thing, then you will miss SCM. Or if you know only SCM and you don't know this, then it is a very, you will have negligence. So what is ventricular septal bulge? A benign form of isolated septal hypertrophy. It is benign, but that can be malignant, SCM, more than 30 mm thickness. Then there is less severe hypertrophy. Here hypertrophy will be less severe, means less than posterior wall will be less than 11, and then it is present absence of left ventricular outflow tract obstruction. In SCM there is obstruction to the LVOT. But here, absence of left ventricular outflow tract obstruction, there will be no obstruction. Then mitral annular calcification is equally prevalent. Of course, calcification is equal in the HCM and ventricular septal bulb. Then present at older age. It is always present in older age, but HCM is present in younger age also. Then here female preponderance is there, but in HCM male preponderance is there. Then the major point is in ventricular septal bulb, SAM is absent, MS is absent, AS is absent, means systolic intimation of mitral valve leaflet, mid-systolic closure of aortic valve, and asymmetrical septal hypertrophy of septum will be absent. So it is not HCM. It is a ventricular septal bulge. Now we go to HCM. In HCM, this is the proximal septum. Here thickness is more than 15. This is the mid septum. Sorry. Yes. Proximal IVS is more than 15 mm, and mid septal is also more than 15 mm. Then you can the systolic anterior motion you can see of the, then posterior wall thickness is more than 11. Then mitral annular calcification is equal in both. Then this angle is dotted, this angle. This angle is more than 110 in HCM, but it will be less than 110 in ventricular septal bulge. Then we come to apical 4-chamber view in 2D echo. Here RA, RV, LA, LV and aorta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chambers are there. This is much more important because here we will like to see the color Doppler flow, which will denote you what is diastolic dysfunction and what are the gradients at the aortic wall. You see the left ventricular outflow tract pressure gradient here in rest or stress it is more than 30 mm. But while in VSB it is less than 30. Followed? Now I will like to show you that pressure gradient, very big point. The pressure gradient across the walls of the heart is 0. There is no gradient across the wall of the heart in a normal, healthy heart. It is the only diseased heart which has got the gradient across the wall. You see, mitral inflow Doppler velocity E and A, E if it is more than 2, remember if it is more than 2, and if we go to tissue Doppler, then you see E this and this is A Doppler, mitral inflow velocity. Here this E of tissue Doppler and this E of mitral inflow Doppler, if it is we take ratio of this E and this E, then it is more than 14. If it is more than 14 and if it is more than 2, this E and A, then this is known as what? Grade 3rd and grade 4th diastolic dysfunction, and this is what? End stage of heart failure. So now we have to calculate the mean deviation. Calculation of posterior wall thickness of LV in HCM by standard deviation, which is calculated by this formula. Then Z-score formula. Calculation of posterior wall thickness of LV in HCM by Z-score. This is the formula. Now this is a table. Here also you can calculate. I will show you the mean weight and standard deviation in the samples of man and woman. This is woman, this is man. It is the HCM recognized and maximum LV wall thickness is more than 15 mm or 2 standard deviations above the mean, or Z score more than 2 for age sex or body size by 2D echo. You see here, this is the age. You see here, number of the patient. You see here, mean body weight. And this is the standard deviation. In man, these are the actually number of the patient. This is the mean weight of the person, and this is the standard deviation. Supposing the age is 18 in a girl, and she is having mean weight 57.6, and so standard deviation will be 8.97. Now in men also, you see, if the age is 18 and the mean weight of the man is 70.5 kg, then standard deviation is 14.20. So you can calculate by this formula also. No need to go on these calculations. Now I will take to additional symptoms of SCM, which include one or more of the following. Earlier you have seen the measurement of the IVS and the positive wall. Now here other symptoms, additional symptoms are left ventricular outflow tract obstruction number 1, diastolic dysfunction number 2, myocardial ischemia number 3, then supraventricular and ventricular arrhythmias number 4. Now, depending on the clinical progression, SCM has been described as 4 distinct stages. So I will discuss all the 4 stages, the various stages of SCM. First stage, the subclinical SCM. Here presentation is what? The patient is genotype positive. Means what? Having wild type and unmodified gene, but yet to develop phenotype. Phenotype means physical and psychological expression. So the patient is genotype positive, but yet to develop phenotype expression, and such a patient is called in subclinical hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. This is stage 1. Then we go to stage 2, that is classic HCM. Here the ejection fraction is supranormal, more than 65%. Remember, when the walls are thick, then the heart muscles are hypercontractile. Here hypercontractile muscles are there, so the ejection fraction is much more than normal. It is 65%. And late gadolinium enhancement, which denotes the fibrosis, the late gadolinium enhancement denoting myocardial fibrosis accounts less than 5% of LV mass, and about 70% of these patients have LVOT obstruction at rest or on provocation. So such type of stage is 2, and this is classic HCM. Then we go to stage 3. This is remodeling, adverse remodeling. Here ejection fraction has been decreased 50 to 65%, and the late gadolinium enhancement is 10 to 15%, means fibrosis has increased. Then we go to stage 4. Here this ejection fraction has decreased much more, and late gadolinium enhancement is much more, 25%, and the heart becomes dilated, or drastic cardiomyopathy may occur because LVOT has no obstruction, and obstruction may be absent. Stage 4, over dysfunction or end stage disease. This is end stage heart failure. Now we will go to next slide. So we have come to we were talking of the gadolinium. Everybody must be knowing, I think, and radiologists especially know what is gadolinium. And here, in short, I am telling you, gadolinium, rare earth metal used in some of the most effective dyes for MRI or intensive care medicine. Late gadolinium enhancement is an effective and reproducible method of assessing myocardial fibrosis, and has previously demonstrated prognostic use in patients with intensive care medicine and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now, clinical type-based hypertrophic cardiomyopathy on LVOT obstruction is as follows. First is non-obstructive, basal obstructive, and labile obstructive. What is non-obstructive? these patients have LVOT peak gradient less than 30 mm. You know, there is no gradient across the wall. The gradient across healthy valve is 0. Here LVOT peak gradient is less than 30, means there is something under basal and provocative conditions. Then basal obstructive. Basal obstructive, these patients have resting gradient more than 30. Resting gradient is more than 30. Then labile obstructive, these patients have resting gradient less than 30 mm. However, the gradient increases to more than 30 mm on provocation. The gradient are measured commonly by transthoracic echo with continuous wave Doppler or rarely by cardiac catheterization. Now we will go to the pathology, this various types of HCM. Number one type is sigmoidal HCM, which occurs in 40 to 55% of patients. Then reverse curve HCM occurs in 30 to 40% patient. Then apical HCM occurs in 10% patient. Then neutral HCM occurs in 10% patient. Here in sigmoidal HCM, you see septum concave to cavity with pronounced septal bulge and avoid LV cavity. Then, and here 10% myofilament gene, means myofilament genes leads to force production and motion 10% only. Here the second is your reverse gene, reverse curve. Here predominant mid-septal convexity towards LV cavity, and LV cavity is a crescent shaped cavity. 80% myofilament gene leads to force production and motion. Then apical hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, this is apical. Here predominant apical distribution of hypertrophy seen. Here 30% myofilament gene leads to force production and motion. And then neutral HCM, overall state or variable convexity, neither predominantly convex nor concave. 40% myofilament gene leads to force production and motion. Then I will take you probable pathways to complications attributable to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So, genotype positive and phenotype negative. What is genotype positive? Having wild type and unmodified gene. What is phenotype negative? Does not have physical and psychological characteristics of true HCM. So, genotype positive and phenotype negative, they may have normal longevity, that is, many are minimally affected and have normal lifespan, and many have significant complications with disease progression and premature death. If there are no symptoms, then there will be no death. But if there is obstruction, there will be heart failure symptoms, atrial fibrillation and stroke and sudden death, it can lead to end stage phase because left ventricular ejection fraction is less than 50% and which leads to sudden cardiac death. Now, we are going ahead. While many people with HCM could be asymptomatic and achieve a normal life expectancy without any profound complications, in spite of one or all three of the following could occur. First is the sudden cardiac death caused by unpredictable ventricular tachycardia. Sudden death may occur in asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic patients. Number two, progressively worsening heart failure symptoms that include severe dyspnea and angina that eventually leads to end-stage heart failure, and this may occasionally evolve to systolic dysfunction, that is end-stage hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Then third, the last but not the least, atrial fibrillation that is associated with heart failure with increased risk for thromboembolism and stroke, which may occur in up to 20% patients. Sudden death is indeed the most visible, devastating, highly destructive and unpredictable consequence of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, including in the young less than 30 years of the age. The rates of sudden death reduce with age, suggesting that aging reduces the potential for lethal ventricular tachyarrhythmia in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now, very important to note, sudden death occurs without warning and could occur even with mild exertion. Though vigorous physical exercise is a major risk factor. Now, what are the risk factors for sudden death, either cardiac arrest or sustained VT? Now, we are running in the risk factors. Here, conventional risk markers are what? Family history of sudden death due to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, unexplained recent syncope, multiple repetitive non-sustained VT on ambulatory ECG, hypotensive or attenuated blood pressure response to exercise, massive left ventricular hypertrophy, thickness more than 30 mm, and extensive and diffuse late gadolinium enhancement. Now, what and also potential high risk subsets are end stage phase, that is ejection fraction less than 50%, left ventricular apical aneurysm and scarring. Then how to prevent? Prevention is substantial left ventricular outflow tract gradient at rest reduced, alcohol septal ablation carried out, multiple sarcoma mutations modified by modulators, intense competitive sports abandoned, coronary artery disease treated. Now, as we are seeing, LV is only important, which is hypertrophic, but right ventricle can also involve. Right ventricle can also involve because histological findings suggest similar pathogenesis. So, mild concentric hypertrophy to more unusual severe obstructive disease C. Histologic findings suggest similar pathogenesis. Significant RV involvement may result in RV outflow obstruction and or reduced RV diastolic filling and resulting in increased incidence of what? Severe dyspnea, supraventricular arrhythmia and pulmonary thromboembolism. So, now we will read or discuss the genetics of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The mutation in 11 or more genes encoding proteins of cardiac sarcomere, more than 1400 variants are responsible for or associated with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. 70% mutations occur in two genes, for example, beta-myosin heavy chain 7 and myosin binding protein C. Then troponin T and several other genes accounts for only 5% or less of cases of HCM. Now, pathogenic mutations that cause hypertrophic cardiomyopathy are transmitted in an autosomal dominant pattern. Very important point to remember. The main genes associated with familial HCM are represented in underneath table. So, first to sixth, these genes, number 1 myosin 7, number 2 myosin binding protein, number 3 troponin T, number 4 troponin I, then thrombomycin alpha 1 chain, then myosin light chain 3. These 6 are mutation in sarcomere protein gene. These 6 are mutation in sarcomere protein gene. So they are true HCM. they are pure SCM, they are 100% pure. But from 7 to 14, they are not pure, non-sarcomeric protein mutations. Non-sarcomeric protein mutation gene. And pathological and histological phenotype is different. So they are known as phenocopies. Myosin, regulatory light chain 2, actin, alpha cardiac muscle 1, cysteine and glycine rich protein 3, titin, cardiac, phospholamban 1, then 5-MP activated protein kinase subunit gamma 2, the alpha galactosidase A causing Fabry disease, and lastly LMP2 protein gene causing Danon disease. Very important to note, Danon disease I have already discussed previously in this chapter, and genetic phenocopy such as LMP2 cardiomyopathy, also called Danon disease, a profound disease process characterized by rapid clinical deterioration leading to life-threatening arrhythmias and cardiac death in young patients less than 25 years. Death less than 25 years. It requires time molecular diagnosis and consideration. And treatment is heart transplantation. Now I am going to take you, of course, genetics. We are going on the genetics of SCM. But in genetics, there are 4 types of modes for a disease. 4 types of modes for a disease. First, autosomal dominant. Second, autosomal recessive. Third, X-linked dominant. Fourth, X-linked recessive. So, autosomal dominant don't skip generations. Means disease do not skip the son and daughter. Affected parents can have unaffected children. And in this disease will come our main SCM, which is autosomal dominant, and Huntington's disease and achondroplasia. And you can see autosomal dominant. Here, father and mother both are affected. But there can be a unaffected child, son, you can see. So, affected parents can have unaffected children. Second, autosomal recessive skips generation. Disease skips in son or daughter and reappear in grandson or granddaughter. And unaffected parents can have affected children. You see here the autosomal recessive. Mother is not affected, father is not affected, but they can have a daughter which is affected. Means unaffected parents can have affected children. Then, and this also has cystic fibrosis disease, sickle cell disease, and SCM can occur in this also. SCM reported in rare families, autosomal recessive. Then X-linked dominant, disease never transfer from father to son. All daughters of an affected father will be affected, and disease produced is vitamin D resistant rickets. You see, X-linked dominant, father is affected, mother is not affected. But father don't transmit disease to son and transmit to all the daughters. And mother transmit to son because she is not affected, the son are also not affected. Then last but not the least, X-linked recessive, males are more affected. Disease tends to transfer from mother to son and father to daughter. Disease never transfer from father to son. You see, mother is affected, father is not affected. And mother transfers disease to son only, not to daughter. Father is not affected, genes are transferred to daughters only, they are not affected. So, here disease never transfer from father to son. Father to son It never goes. It goes from, disease goes from mother to son, but not from father to son. This example for this disease will be hemophilia and curl blindness. Now, I am going to take you international guidelines for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, recommendations of American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association's guidelines for hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, genetic testing strategies, and family screening guidelines recommendations. What are those? I will tell you now. The class 1 recommendation: evaluation of familial inheritance and genetic counseling is recommended. Then counseling by someone knowledgeable in the genetics of cardiovascular disease recommended. Then screening, clinical, with or without genetic testing. In first degree relatives means father, mother, brother, sister of patient recommended with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Then fourth recommendation is genetic testing for unexplained cardiac hypertrophy. If you find that this hypertrophy is unexplained, then another genetic condition is suspected to be the cause, because genetic testing for unexplained cardiomyopathy in patients with an atypical clinical presentation. If typical presentation of HCM is absent, then always think then another genetic condition should be suspected to be the cause of what? Of the hypertrophy. Then class 2nd A, it was class 1st. Genetic testing is reasonable in the index patient. What is index patient? Index patient means the first documented patient in a disease epidemic with a population. So, genetic testing is reasonable in the index patient to facilitate the identification of first degree family member at risk of developing HCM. Then, genetic testing uncertain. Sometimes genetic testing uncertain, that is class 2nd B recommendation. So, usefulness of genetic testing in the assessment of risk of sudden cardiac death is uncertain. So, it is not assessed. Genetic testing, we don't assess for the sudden cardiac death, which is uncertain. Then, we don't find any benefit from what? Genetic test in relatives not indicated when index patient does not have pathogenic mutation. Pathogenic mutation means does not have symptom of disease. When index patient does not have symptom of disease, then there is no need, it is no benefit to have the genetic testing. Then clinical screening in genotype negative. Genotype negative means no change in gene, chromosome or protein. Clinical screening in genotype negative relatives not indicated in families with HCM. Now I am going to take you, we are going to recommendations for genetics. So genotype positive means having wild type and unmodified gene, and phenotype negative does not have physical and psychological characteristic of patient's recommendation. We are recommending the genetics. We are recommending this test for genotype positive and phenotype negative patients. Class 1 recommendation in individual with pathogenic mutations who do not express the HCM phenotype. Phenotype means the physical and psychological characteristic of an organism from both genetics and environment. It is recommended to perform. In individual with pathogenic mutation who do not express HCM phenotype, it is recommended to perform serial ECG, transfused echo and clinical assessment at periodic intervals. What intervals? 12 to 18 months in children and adolescents and about every 5 years in adults. Then the transfused echo also we have to do, and Now first we take the ECG recommendation. In all patients with HCM, a 12-lead ECG recommended in the initial evaluation of patient with HCM. Then imaging system we recommend, especially first echocardiographic recommendation. Class 1 recommendation of echo will be a transthoracic echo recommended for all patients with suspected HCM. A transthoracic echo recommended for family members of patients with HCM. A periodic 12 to 18 month transthoracic echo recommended for children and adolescents of patients with HCM starting by age 12 or earlier if growth spurt gush out or puberty evident, or when there is plans for engaging in intense sports, or there is a family history of sudden cardiac death. Repeat transthoracic echo recommendation if a change in clinical status or a new cardiovascular event seen. Then transesophageal echo is recommended during intraoperative guidance of surgical myectomy. Then transthoracic echo or transesophageal echo with intracoronary contrast injection of the candidate's recommendations when number 1 septal perforator is recommended for the intraprocedural guidance of alcohol septal ablation, or transesophageal echo should be used to evaluate the effect of surgical myectomy or alcohol septal ablation for obstructive hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now, recommendation we are continuing for transthoracic echo. Second day, transthoracic echo studies performed every 1 to 2 hours for symptomatically stable patients with HCM to assess the degree of myocardial hypertrophy, dynamic obstruction and myocardial function in symptomatically stable patients. Then exercise transthoracic echo recommended in the absence of resting outflow tract obstruction in patients with HCM. Remember, exercise has to be done in absence of resting outflow tract obstruction. Then transthoracic echo combined with the injection of intravenous contrast agent is reasonable if the diagnosis of apical hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or apical infarction or severity of hypertrophy in doubt, particularly when other imaging modalities such as MRI not available, not readily available, not diagnostic or contraindicated. Then you suggest MRI. Serial transthoracic echo studies are reasonable for clinically unaffected patients who have a first degree relative, means father, mother, brother, sister with HCM when genetic test is unknown. Such follow-up may be considered every 12 to 18 months for children or adolescents from high-risk families and every 5 years for adult family members. Then, what not indicated? Echo not indicated. Transthoracic echo studies should not be performed frequently, less than every 12 months or every 12 months in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Routine transesophageal echo not indicated or contrast echocardiography not indicated. Routine. Then stress testing when to do. Stress testing class 2A recommendation to determine functional capacity and response to therapy in patients with HCM. Then treatment stress testing with monitoring of an ECG and blood pressure is reasonable for sudden cardiac death risk stratification. For sudden cardiac death risk stratification in patients with HCM. Then exercise echocardiography is reasonable for the detection and quantification of exercise-induced dynamic LVOT obstruction if no resting gradient. If no resting gradient. Then I am coming to MRI. MRI recommendations. Class 1 recommendation of MRI. MRI recommended when echocardiography is inconclusive for suspected HCM. MRI recommended to assess magnitude and distribution of hypertrophy or anatomy of mitral valve hypertrophy or papillary muscles if not adequately defined with echo. Then class 2A recommendation of MRI to define apical hypertrophy or apical aneurysm if echo is inconclusive. Then 2B recommendation of MRI with assessment of late gadolinium enhancement for sudden cardiac death stratification may be considered in resolving clinical decision making. Then MRI in patient with LV hypertrophy and the suspicion of other etiology, for example cardiac amyloidosis, Fabry disease and genetic phenocopies such as LMP2 cardiomyopathy, lysozyme associated membrane protein gene cardiomyopathy, also called Danon disease, is a profound disease process characterized by rapid clinical deterioration leading to life-threatening arrhythmia and cardiac death in young patients less than 25 years. It requires time, molecular diagnosis and consideration of heart transplantation. Detection of concomitant coronary disease when class 1 recommendation. Percutaneous coronary arteriography in patients with HCM with chest discomfort who have an intermediate to high likelihood of coronary artery disease, and CT angiography with a low likelihood of CAD. Now, I am going to take you at MPI, myocardial perfusion imaging, that is nuclear imaging test known as SPECT and PET with a radioactive material called TESSAs, and pictures are taken by gamma camera in patients with HCM with chest discomfort and low likelihood of CAD to rule out possible concomitant CAD. But it is not indicated when this SPECT and PET not indicated routine SPECT myocardial perfusion imaging or stress echocardiography is not indicated who are asymptomatic. Assessment for microvascular ischemia by SPECT not indicated for the assessment of prognosis in patients with HCM. Then asymptomatic patients recommendations are what? Class 1 comorbidities contributing to cardiovascular disease be treated in HCM as per existing guidelines. Second A, in asymptomatic patient, low intensity aerobic exercise recommended as a part of healthy lifestyle for patients with HCM. Then in asymptomatic patient, not useful. What is not useful? The usefulness of beta blockade, non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers like diltiazem and disopyramide, a sodium channel blocker, class 1A antiarrhythmic agent to alter clinical outcome, is not well established in asymptomatic patients with HCM with or without obstruction. Then class 3rd, not performed and are harmful in asymptomatic patients. Number 1, septal reduction therapy should not be performed in asymptomatic adult and pediatric patients with HCM with normal effort tolerance regardless of the severity of the obstruction. In patients with HCM with resting or post-caval outflow tract obstruction regardless of symptom status, pure vasodilators and high dose diuretics are potentially harmful. But now, the last but not the least, the management of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. You can see the MAPT lesion, the MAPT here, and rules are printed. So, supposing there is a HCM patient. Treat comorbidities according to guidelines. Hypertension should be treated, lipid profile treated, diabetes mellitus treated. If obstructive physiology found, then avoid vasodilator therapy and high dose diuretics, avoid it. But if you find heart failure symptoms and angina, then you must have annual clinical evaluation 12 to 18 months in children and adolescents and every 5 years in adults. And when heart failure and angina symptom occurs, then you must go for beta blocker, verapamil and disopyramide. And if symptom persists in spite of these pharmacological methods, then invasive therapy applied. And invasive therapy, if patient accepts surgical intervention, then surgical myomectomy is done. And if he does not accept surgical intervention, then go for alcohol ablation. Provided patient accepts alcohol ablation, then you have to go for alcohol ablation. And if he does not accept alcohol ablation, then go for face shield. And supposing that obstruction physiology is not there, and if heart failure symptoms or angina persist, then first you go to annual clinical evaluation for 12 to 18 months in children and adolescents and every 5 years in adults. And when systolic function, see the systolic function by 2D echo. If left ventricular ejection is less than 50, then therapy as outlined in heart failure guidelines should be done. And if ejection fraction is more than 50, then beta blockers, verapamil and disopyramide given, and diuretics are given, and ACE inhibitor or ARB given. This is all about the management of the HCM. This is the MAPKI. So friends, this was the part 1 of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. I hope you must have enjoyed it. And now I will discuss part 2nd and part 3rd soon after a few days. And I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.